Hi YouTube, and welcome to my random thoughts on Thursdays. And this time around, I'm going to be talking about politics. So, as most of you know, in the US we are coming up on a big presidential election, and there is a lot of talk, and it's a very, very close race right now. And I thought I would share some of my struggles with the election this year. In previous elections, I did not struggle as much in terms of who to vote for. I've never had an election where there was a candidate that matched my personal values 100%. But this year, the top two are so they're opposite sides of the same coin in very many ways, and I don't agree with either one of them on some very large issues. And there's a lot of third parties out there. In fact, on the Colorado ballot, there's like 16, including Roseanne Barr, which I find rather amusing. But even among the third parties, there's not a single candidate that I agree with 100% on all the issues either. As an independent voter, I don't register for any specific party. I don't follow party lines. I like voting independently, and if there's a Republican out there that I think meets my values closer than the Democrat, then I will vote that way. If there's a Libertarian or a Green Party or whatever, Republican, it doesn't really matter which party you are. I tend to try and vote more with my values. Now, I know that there's a lot of people and a lot of debate going back and forth whether or not that's a wise thing to do, especially with the state of the US economy today. One of the arguments is, to vote strategically for one of the top two candidates rather than voting with your values and throwing away your vote for a third party candidate. Unless, of course, I'm voting for one of the top two because they match my values, which to me, neither one of them really do. I did vote for Obama back in 2008, and to me, he has been very disappointing in many, many ways. I mean, in some ways, to me, he's been Bush 2.0, and I really didn't like Bush at all. And so I've got some really strong issues with how he's run the country the last 4 years. At the same time, where I think Romney might do a better job with the economy, I have some really fundamental issues with where he is on social issues, especially women's issues. And so, out of my best conscience, I have a hard time trying to vote strategically for either one of those. Or, I guess, another way to look at it is strategically voting against the person you don't want in office. So lesser two evils is another way to look at it. But there are so many other political parties in the US, and so one of the things I've done is I've gone through and I've looked at some of the other candidates. I know that none of them has a chance of winning, but do I vote based on my values, or do I vote based on who I no longer want in office? And is that the right way to go? And so you can see where I'm struggling with this. Even right now as I'm talking about this, I'm struggling with how to explain my struggles in a way as well. And it's a tough decision, it really is. My values, just so that you're clear on one of the reasons I'm struggling with this, I am very much fiscally conservative. I believe in small government. I believe in states' rights. I believe that if it's not in the Constitution, it belongs to the states, and it should be up to the states to decide. So, for example, Obamacare is one of the issues I have because of the federal mandate. Well, that takes away the states' rights, and I have a huge issue with that. So so that's basically where I'm at in terms of, from a fiscal standpoint, the economy, jobs, that kind of thing. I think a lot of that should be left up to the state. It really isn't a federal thing, and I think reducing the federal government and letting states kind of run things the way they want to is sort of where I'm at from a fiscal and economic standpoint on my opinions on politics. Now, when it comes to more social things, things like abortion, women's rights, gay rights, whether or not people should get unemployment and welfare and that kind of thing, I tend to be more liberal in those areas. And so and it's kind of hard to reconcile those two things, especially when it comes to, like, I want to be fiscally conservative. I don't want my tax dollars going out and redistribute the wealth and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, I do recognize that there are people out there who need help, and the government is one of the best ways to help them, or at least to start to help them. Charities don't quite do enough. I have no problem with unemployment at all. I think the unemployment program is great because tax dollars don't go to the unemployment. It's actually, as you're working, you and your employer both pay towards your unemployment, so if you get laid off, that's where that money comes from. It's not coming from tax dollars. So I think the unemployment program is a really great social program that should continue. Disability. There are people out there that are either born or have an accident or have something genetic that happens where they become disabled and they need help, they need assistance, and they don't always have family, they don't always have a rich uncle or somebody that can take care of them. And so the disability payments from Medicare, I think, are also a critical service of the government, and so I don't want to get rid of that. So I struggle with a lot of those kind of things. So those are definitely social programs and fiscal programs that I definitely support, while I still also support kind of reducing government and reducing a lot of entitlement programs and only helping those who really need the help, and trying to ferret out all of the people who are actually abusing the system. Disability is another one where there are people who are definitely abusing that system as well. Let's help the people who really do need the help, and let's go after the people who don't and transition them out of the system and help them get actual jobs and things. Which, I know that's a big issue right now. Unemployment is still really high. The economy really sucks. We need to fix the economy. That's another reason why I'm struggling with everything, because as far as I can see, I don't see Obama fixing the economy. I really don't. Will Romney fix it? I don't know. He's a successful businessman, so he might understand finance and economy and all that kind of stuff better. But will he actually be able to follow through with what he promises to do? Obama certainly did not follow through with a lot of the things he promised, at least the things that I cared about. So I'm really taking what all the candidates say with a grain of salt. One thing I have definitely done was, there's a website out there called isidewith.com. I think that's the website. You might want to Google that. But they actually have like a list of questions, and you answer them based on your values and based on what you care about, and then it pairs you up with which candidate, and it doesn't matter Romney or Obama or Gary Johnson or Jill Stein, Virgil Good, or there's a whole bunch of people out there that are running for president, and it matches you up with the one that meets or matches your values the closest. And with me, I think the one I matched the closest with is Gary Johnson from the Libertarian Party, because he is on one side very fiscally conservative. He actually wants to do some pretty radical things. So he wants to get rid of the income tax entirely, and he also wants to get rid of things like capital gains tax and just get rid of get rid of the IRS entirely. So no income tax, no capital gains tax, etc. And replace everything with what's called a consumption tax of, like, I think the recommendation is 23%. So basically everyone has to pay taxes. Even illegal immigrants ultimately end up having to pay taxes because you're paying on the things that you're buying with your money rather than having it taken out of your paycheck. And I think that's actually a very interesting notion. And ultimately it would end up being lower taxes for most people. But I don't understand finance and economics and things to any great degree. I mean, I have a fundamental understanding of it, but I don't have like this, this great understanding of it where I could say, hey, this is a fantastic idea and this is why. I do think it's an interesting idea. I do like the concept of at least going to a flat tax rather than a graduated tax where everyone pays the same percentage, and even for capital gains, so that, like a lot of people have picked on Romney because he only paid 14% capital gains taxes on his income last year because all his money is just from his from the dividends and investments that he's done. He's not actually earning an income from a job. And so because of that, with capital gains taxes being lower than income taxes, he ultimately pays less because of those laws. And so if we ended up with a flat tax where capital gains and income tax are all taxed exactly the same, ultimately it would actually help. First of all, it would make people who only earn money from their investment income and they don't have a employment income, they end up paying more taxes, ultimately, which I think a lot of people would agree would be not a terrible thing. At the end of the day, I am fiscally conservative, and the economy I think is a big issue. Still, I'm socially liberal, and women's rights, etc., is also a big issue. And so, again, I'm torn. If I vote one way or another, I don't get either needs met in terms of if I do a strategic vote. If I strategically vote so that Obama doesn't get in office, that means I vote for Romney. If I strategically vote to make sure Romney doesn't get in office, then I vote for Obama. I don't like either of those choices. If I try and vote with my values, I'd probably vote Gary Johnson. He's the one that matches me from a value-based perspective the most. But I'm struggling with that. Do I vote for Gary Johnson knowing that he's not going to win? Or do I vote for either Romney or Obama based on what I think is more important right now? Is the economy more important or social issues more important? That's a tough toss-up right there. And so I've got to think about that. Or do I vote against the candidate I don't want it? So this is where my struggle is. This is why I'm struggling, and I think this is probably why a lot of independent voters are struggling, because ultimately at the end of the day we don't really have any good choices. I mean, we actually have some really good choices with the third parties. Problem is, not enough people know about the third parties, and those of us who do, while we can vote for them, it's a tough decision because we know they're not going to win, so it may or may not be a throwaway vote. Oddly enough, Gary Johnson, for example, is taking votes away from both Romney and Obama. Some states he's taking more votes away from Romney, and some states he's taking more votes away from Obama. And so he's actually probably not going to be much of a factor in terms of being a spoiler or whatever. So, are you really throwing away your vote or causing one candidate to win over another one? At this stage in the game, probably not. Probably not. I know ultimately it's going to be either Obama or Romney who's going to win. It's such a close race, there's absolutely no way right now to know who's going to win. I think at the end of the day, once you've made your decision, like I said, I haven't made mine yet, I really am still struggling with it, but once you've made your decision, I think it's important that you do vote, and I definitely plan on voting. 100% I am going and voting this year because I think it's important, and I think that my vote will definitely count. Even if the candidate I ultimately choose doesn't win, I think my vote still counts because it still speaks volumes to the different political parties out there. You know, let's say there's a big upset and Gary Johnson actually gets 10% of the vote. I think Ross Perot had like 9%. So let's say Gary Johnson hypothetically gets 10%. I think that sends a message. Even if he doesn't win, I think that sends a message to the other parties. So anyway, I mean, sorry if I've been rambling a little bit on this video. This is, like I said, I'm still struggling with it. I'm sure a lot of other independent voters are still struggling with it. But please, at the end of the day, make a choice and go out and vote. Because I think this year, I think everyone's votes will definitely matter. And I think it's important that everyone goes out and votes. And I hope that we get a significant percentage of people in this country voting this year, because I think it's really important. So anyway, thanks for watching this long ramble, and until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.